Today I come to you with a charcuterie board of products from Phytosurgence, and I'm going to be reviewing all of them. I've been testing for about over a month at this point, and I feel like I'm finally ready to let you know my thoughts about them, my information, tips and tricks for techniques, and I'm also going to put some really close-up footage of me applying the products with no filter, no edits or anything, so you can see what it looks like. But first, let me tell you a little bit about the brand. So Phytosurgence is a Canadian brand based out of Vancouver, owned, operated, formulated, developed, processed, everything by a team of two, Jason and Tom, who I'm not sure what their background is, but they seem to be very knowledgeable about formulations and product development. And I just want to read one thing from their website that just resonated with me. So they say, transparency to us means doing away with the smoke and mirrors commonly seen in the beauty industry. For one, we feel like using fear-mongering and scare tactics to sell products under claims such as non-toxic or clean leads to misinformed consumerism, which we are standing up to. And when I saw that, I was like, yes. Yes, thank you, Lord, yes, because I do not subscribe to clean beauty at all. I think it does exactly what they said. It relies on misinformation, fear-mongering, and manipulation to trick consumers into spending money. So right away, I was interested in the brand, and just, it seems like what they do is find holes in the makeup industry, and they create products to fill those. And I'll kind of get more into that as I go through each product. But anyway, what I have here is I have 4 of their Flash Florescence eyeshadows. I have the Spectral Shine Radiance Balm in the Sky Buff brush. I have 3 of the Skin Spark blush balms, and then I have their Verdant Forcefield moisturizer. So I'm going to break this down by timestamp. Let's start with the Flash Florescence cream shadows. Before I even get into this, I want to say the descriptions on the Phytosurgence website are quite honestly so much better than anything I could possibly describe to you. It's clear to me that they've put so much thought into describing the texture, sensation, application of each product, and I've found it so true to real life. So if you're considering purchasing from them, I definitely encourage to actually go through and read all the text, because I found it immensely helpful. One last thing, I want to give a shout out to Teresa, who was instrumental in helping me choose shades I included in my first order. Shout out Teresa. Definitely follow her on Instagram if you're not already. She makes incredible content. So these are described as a foolproof one-and-done cream eyeshadow that can be used to create multi-dimensional or easy-to-wear looks that weathers everyday life like a champ. The texture is described as a firm cream that picks up incredibly easy and thin, gives you enough playtime on the skin before it dries down to a budge-proof finish. And the way I would describe these is like if you took an eyeliner, like the actual liner part, and kind of like smushed it up and put it in a pot. That's what it feels like to me. They call it a cream, but it's not like what you think of when you think of a cream eyeshadow. It doesn't pick up super easily with your finger. You definitely need to swirl it around, warm it up from the warmth of your skin and the friction from rubbing. And once you pick it up on your finger, it feels like a very thin layer, but it transfers easily onto your skin. I find them to be very intuitive and easy to use. So often I will use my finger to apply them just like this, and kind of like tap it on my eyelid, like in the most concentrated areas. I also love to use this brush. This is the Makeup Shack T37, and this is a synthetic brush. It's dense and domed at the top and has some toothiness to it. So I find this is really good to kind of just like swirl around, and it'll pick up just enough product, and the way it distributes on the brush makes it easy to apply on your eye in an easy layer and kind of feather it out along the edges. So those are really the only 2 tools I use to apply these, and I will include that in the demos. So I have 4 shades here. They're from 3 different collections, so I'll kind of just go in order of how they appear on their website. The first one here is Defiant Dahlia. And this is from their In Bloom collection, and this is described as a rich deep brown shade with violet undertones and a neutral/gold shimmer scattered throughout. Has a pearlescent shimmer finish. And this to me is like the perfect bronze tone. It looks kind of like a neutral brown here, but there's something about it that just brings some warmth to my face. And it also has this very subtle, almost like rosy undertone to it. Usually with a bronze eyeshadow, it will pull very orange on me, and that's not what I'm looking for. By the way, I have very fair skin with a lot of green in it. Like I have olive undertones, so a lot of neutral things tend to pull very orange on me, but this to me is like the perfect everyday brown color. I absolutely love it, and it has what they describe as a pearlescent finish with these beautiful sparkles scattered throughout it. And I purchased all of these not intending for them to be the star of the show in my eye looks. I was thinking I would use them as a base and maybe put a topper shade on top, but I found with Defiant Dahlia and one of the other ones I'm going to show you, they make a fantastic one and done, and I don't really feel any need to put anything else on top of them. I think they add enough dimension, depth, and visual interest to my eyes where I'm satisfied with just them on their own. I think this is my favorite Defiant Dahlia, and I honestly, it wasn't on my radar, but I saw Teresa said this is one of her favorite go-to everyday shades. It really interested me, so I decided to pick it up, and I'm so glad I did. And I'll show you the closest thing I have in terms of a comparison is from the Natasha Denona Retro palette. So hopefully that can show you what the tone is like in person. I think a lot of people will be familiar with that. Okay, the next two are from the Weathered Woods collection. They're described as having somewhat in between the original cream shadows, which have a satin pearl finish, and the In Bloom collection, which has more glittery finishes. These are somewhere in between with no large particles of glitter, but definitely more pearly and shiny than the core range. So I have two shades. I have Oxidized Olive and Chilled Cherry. Oxidized Olive is described as an olive leaning, though not green at all, greyish bronze. And this to me is like my perfect taupe. It definitely reads very cool toned on me, and I see a little bit of what they call olive showing through on here, but I feel like on my skin tone, it just reads as a true taupey neutral. It has that cool tone in the sheen, but I also feel like it has a little bit of warmth in the base of it. It's really hard to describe. There's so much nuance to it when it's applied. So you see a little bit of that warmth coming through in the base, but then that sheen on top I feel like is reading pretty cool toned. So I really didn't have anything even remotely close to this. I feel like even though it looks like a taupe, it is so unique. So I have two comparisons here. I have Noble from the Natasha Denona Metropolis palette, which I think of as like an olive leaning taupey shade, but as you can see, it's a lot more gold and green than Oxidized Olive. And then underneath I have one of the shades from the Glam palette, which I will put the name up on the screen. This is what I think of as a true neutral gray, and I feel like this reads closer, but again, I see a big difference in the depth of the tone, and I feel like Oxidized Olive exists somewhere in between them, but it just has so much more interest to it. Like, I feel like it looks like multiple shadows layered together, and I feel like this goes with literally any topper shade. So the ones that I have from this collection, I use mostly as a base for a more sparkly shade on top, and I just want to show you how budge proof these are once they apply. So, okay, I have two powder shadows in between, and I'm just going to show you. The powder shadows have like completely disintegrated, but Oxidized Olive is completely intact. And I find these last literally all day on my eyes. I never get any creasing or anything from them. So they're definitely budge proof, which is one of the claims they make. The next one from this collection is called Chilled Cherry. It's described as a taupey, cooler leaning Merlot rose that still maintains a bit of neutrality. And this one was so intriguing to me because I feel like it almost reads like a very soft mauve-y purple. But again, I just feel like when you apply this, it just has this neutrality to it. And I feel like it's similar to Oxidized Olive in that it has this warmth coming through the base, but then it has that cooler toned sheen on top. Shades like this on my skin tone, they gave me that little bit of like a sickly but romantic look, and I freaking love it. I don't know if it's the most flattering on me technically, but I personally love the way it looks. In terms of comparisons, I really don't have anything quite like this. The closest thing I could find was Abundance from Huda Beauty Rose Quartz palette, but this reads as more of a purple. It doesn't have any of that warmth in the base or mauviness. The last one I have is called Crystal Constellation, and this is from their Celestial Ceremony collection. This collection is described as having their signature Phytosurgence soft focus, twinkling, and glimmering effect. Still very impactful, but not in a metallic or ultra foiled way. And this is described as a neutral mid-depth chocolate brown with crystalline shimmer. This to me reads as like a cool tone, mid-tone brown, similar to Defiant Dahlia in that it does have these bits of mica dispersed throughout it, but the mica flecks are more concentrated in here, so it creates more of a twinkle on your eyes. And I just want to say, even these shades that are more sparkly or twinkly, they don't have any texture to them. They all seem to apply pretty much the same. They have that very thin feeling, and they don't create any texture on your eyelids. So if you have mature lids or texture is a concern, I don't think you need to worry about that, even with these more textured shades. And again, it just looks like a basic brown, but I really struggled to find something similar in my collection to compare with this. So the closest thing I could find is Jude from the Natasha Denona Retro palette. And I feel like tonally these are similar, but Jude lacks the depth that Crystal Constellation has. Again, I picked this up thinking I would just use it as a base for other eyeshadows, but I find myself wanting to just use this on its own because the contrast between those flecks of sparkle and that cool tone brown base, I just feel like looks incredible on the eyes. I have used it as a base for other shades too. It does definitely can serve that purpose, but I am just surprised by how impressed I was with these on their own. In short, I am so impressed with the Flash Florescence cream shadows that I've tried. I really wish that I picked up one of their more translucent sparkly shades like Fractal Freesia or Lunar Lightwave, and I think I would like to place an order in the future and pick up one of those. Now that I'm familiar with the formula, I definitely think I would get a lot of use out of it. I was worried they wouldn't compete with my more sparkly topper shades that are in powder form. I think they would serve their own purpose in my collection, so I really want to pick up one of those more sheer shades. I also want to pick up a shade or two from their original collection, which is supposed to have a satin pearl finish. In particular, the shade Wild Oak looks like a perfect bronze, and I'm also intrigued by the shade Deeply Rooted. So maybe in the future I will pick out one or two of those, but for now I'm just going to appreciate the ones I do have. The only complaint I have, and this isn't particular to Phytosurgence, this is just potted cream shadows in general, is that my nails are not long at all. They're very short, but I still did struggle a little bit to really dig my finger in. So I think if you have long nails, you would struggle to apply them with your finger. But like I said, a brush like this does the job, and I find that's how I apply them most often. So not really a complaint, just something to point out. I think these are definitely worth checking out no matter what your preferences are. I think you would be able to find use for them. Okay, quickly I want to talk about this product. This is the Verdant Forcefield, which is their moisturizer. It's described as a skin barrier reinforcing moisturizer. Hydrates, soothes, moisturizes, and protects skin day and night. It's known for its ability to make makeup look incredible when used for skin prep. It helps makeup look extremely skin-like and apply with ease. I used to be a skincare girly, but I honestly couldn't care less now. I found products that work for me, and I'm not really interested in experimenting with any others. I have very acne prone skin, and I just don't really like to mess around with trying new products. But I did look into this for quite a while, and I decided to pick it up because of the ingredients and the claims. It just sounded like it would be really great for me for a daytime moisturizer. Let me describe this to you. So it feels very creamy but not heavy, and it's not one of those moisturizers that just soaks right into your skin and is no longer detectable. I feel like my skin is very nourished and supple feeling afterwards, and it takes a bit to sink in. I will say makeup does apply so well once I apply it. It smells like green tea. My husband says it smells like matcha. It spreads and smooths out so beautifully. I applied more than I wanted to on my hand. And I haven't used it for a long enough time to tell you what any long-term benefits are. It would take me literally a month to be able to determine that. I haven't had any severe breakouts since trying it. I'm really careful about introducing new products to my routine because my skin is so acne prone. And I actually gave it to my husband to use when he was having a lot of skin irritation, and he tells me every day how much better his skin feels. Definitely does not care about skincare at all. So I understand why it's a crowd favorite. Here's what my hand looks like after applying a layer. Here's my other hand where I did not apply any. So you can kind of see it just creates this seamless layer. So I have two sunscreens that I rotate through on a day-to-day basis. I have the Beauty of Joseon sunscreen, which is a bit thicker and more nourishing, and then I have the Skin Aqua sunscreen, which is a lot thinner and runnier. I don't like to use Beauty of Joseon with this one. I feel like it's too occlusive for my skin to have those two together, so I tend to only use the Skin Aqua one. But in terms of applying makeup over this, it just creates this very smooth layer, and it makes applying creams and even powders a lot easier. So I feel like this can almost double as a primer as well. If you were thinking about trying it, I don't think you would be disappointed. I'm really happy, and I probably will repurchase this once I run out. Next up, we have the Skin Spark Blush Balms. I have one from their original line, and I have two from their Toasted line. So let me talk about the overall formula first, and we'll get into each shade. These are described as a cheek color with customizable intensity, a moussey cream that resembles a soft chocolate truffle in texture, melts to the touch but dries down to a soft, natural natural, somewhat powder-like finish that does not remain sticky or greasy. The tactile experience of touching and using these is very unique. I don't have anything quite like it in my collection. I'll go through and compare some of my other cream blushes. When they say it feels like a chocolate truffle, I could not think of a more accurate way to describe it. Picks up very easily with a finger or brush. There are two brushes that I like to use to apply this. I have this brush from the Makeup Shack, the T96, and it has this angled layer, and I feel like this is so good for precision application. I will either use this to blend out when I apply it with my finger, or I'll literally just dip the brush in here because it fits in and tap it on that way. And I just feel like this creates the most seamless, precise application from all the brushes I've tried. So if you have a brush like this, I think sometimes like brands label them as foundation brushes. I really recommend a brush like this. And I also have this brush from Real Techniques. I don't know if they sell it anymore. It's called the Light Layer Brush. This is my favorite brush for cream face products. I have 3 of them, and it's like a stippling brush, but it also is like a regular angled face brush. I don't have anything quite like it, but I feel like this picks up the product really nicely and applies it in a more sheer, dispersed layer. So those are really the only 2 brushes that I use to apply it. I also will just literally use my finger, and you can blend it out with your finger easily. Very intuitive, easy to use product. One thing I will say is a little goes a long way, and in these pots it looks like I have barely even touched them, but I've used these pretty much on a daily basis for over a month at this point, and like there's almost no dent at all. So when they say a little goes a long way, like this much is enough for your entire cheek. So the finish of these is hard to describe, but it does not remain tacky, but it also does not dry down to a powder finish in my opinion. It just looks like your skin. I was trying to explain this to my friend Catherine. I don't think the formula is in any way similar to the ColourPop Super Shock blushes, but I feel like the way they dry down is similar in that it retains that like elasticity and skin-like finish of a cream product, but it dries down to the feeling of a powder product, if that makes sense. So let's just use this one to compare to a few other textures. Okay, I'm just going to compare this to literally all of the other cream blush and compact formulas I have in my collection because I don't have that many. Okay, so I'm going to put, this is Fume from Phytosurgence here. I'm just going to apply it in a layer. So compared to the Tower 28 cream blush, their Beach Please brush, this is Magic Hour. This one feels a lot more oily and emollient, and on my skin it never fully dries down, but this stays tacky on my skin throughout the day, whereas this dries down to just like literally the feeling of my skin. Then we have the LYS cream blush, which I feel like is almost similar, but it's a lot more dense. Actually, I feel like the color is kind of similar here. This is the shade Confident. I feel like this also dries down to that skin-like finish, but Phytosurgence blush blends out a little bit more easily and it feels a little bit more airy to the touch. Then I have these two, which are like putty blushes. I have the MAC Glow Play blush, and this is in Cheeky Devil. And I feel like this feels a lot more dry, and it almost immediately applies to like a powder-like finish. So totally different user experience. And I would say this is like a true cream to powder formula. And then also the Epu Juicy Pink blusher in PK01 Plum. I would say this is like a dupe to the MAC Glow Play blush. So again, it just applies in this like immediately powdery finish. I don't know if this is helpful at all, but I just wanted to show you. These are all the cream blush formulas I have in my collection. So the first one we'll discuss is Fume, which is described as a dusty neutral rose. And this to me is like a perfect everyday pink. It's interesting because there's no question that this is a pink, but it's desaturated enough that I feel like it falls into the neutral blush territory. And I'm speaking about my skin tone specifically. I know they have quite a wide range of colors and they seem to be very inclusive with their range. So when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about my skin tone. Just adds this flush of color to my face without being too blushy. And I'm not against a super blushy look, but if I just want something effortless and easy to use, I am reaching for this constantly. So let me compare it to some other blushes. So here's Fume. Here's Confident from LYS Beauty. I feel like this is a lot warmer tone and it's more saturated, but overall it's kind of similar. Next I have Nabla Skin Glazing in Independence. And this I feel like is more similar to the LYS shade, just lighter, but as you can see, it still has a little bit more warmth compared to Fume. And then the last one I have here is Nude Venus from Pat McGrath. I feel like this is, again, warmer and brighter and almost looks coral compared to Fume, but in the pan, this looks like a true pink to me. So I don't know if this is helpful at all, but here are the closest blushes I have in my collection. The next one I have is called Evaporate, and I picked this up mostly because I was struggling to understand what it would actually look like in real life and on my skin tone. I feel like it almost seems like it should be a bronzer. So all of the toasted shades have a sibling in their original blush line, and they're referred to as like the toasted version of that shade. So Evaporate is described as a toasted version of the shade Smolder. Neutral smoky peach, think roasted brown sugar milk tea. This has been my most used out of all of the blushes. I use it honestly every day, and I feel like it fills the role of a bronzer in that it adds that warmth and sun-kissed glow to my face while also adding a little bit of color and vibrancy. And I tend to put this like all over my cheek, and then if I'm feeling a little extra, I'll put a more vibrant blush color more towards the center of my face. But this is like a product I never knew I needed, but now I feel like I can't live without it. I use it almost every time I do my makeup, and I love it so much. And I honestly don't have anything quite like this. So the closest things I have the Tower 28 Beach Please blush in the shade Magic Hour. And I love this shade. So much more saturated and bright compared to Evaporate. And the next one I have is Desert Orchid from Pat McGrath, which reads a little bit orangey on me. So again, none of these I would consider even necessarily close, but it's the closest I have in my collection. And the last shade here from the Toasted collection is called Condensate, which is supposed to be the Toasted Fume. So I'll swatch them side by side. Described as a cooler tone muted dusty pink with a hint of violet. Vibe is a lavender oat matte. So funny story about this, I actually picked this up a long time ago, and I never gave it a chance because I just didn't understand. It just so happened that one of my friends who lives in Germany was like super interested in trying Phytosurgence but wasn't able to get it to their country, so I just mailed mine to her so she could try it. So I feel like now that I understood the product more, I was ready to try it again and see, and I'm so glad I decided to pick it up again. I feel like the reason I didn't get on with this at first is because it is so desaturated and cool tone. I was thinking of it in terms of a normal blush and not as like a unique tool in my collection. The main way I like to use this is as a tone adjuster for a blush that pulls too warm on me. So I'd mentioned before that a lot of times things pull very orangey or warm tone on my olive skin tone. And this, if I just tap a little bit of this in, it like really brings it to that perfect tone for my skin tone. But I also have started to appreciate this on its own too. I feel like now that I really understand its purpose and the undertone and everything, I can know what kind of looks to pair it with. So first let me swatch it next to Fume. So on top is Condensate and on the bottom is Fume, and as you can see, it's like you just turn down the saturation. It looks maybe a little bit cooler toned too. I definitely see how they would be siblings. So I have two blushes I'm going to compare it with. First is that Juicy Pink blusher in the shade Plum, and this is lighter and more vibrant, but this on its own was previously one of my most desaturated and like neutral adjacent blushes, so I think that just goes to show how much more muted and desaturated this is compared to it. Flirtatious from Pat McGrath, one of their powder blushes. It's just totally different. I think of this again as such a neutral. It reads a lot warmer compared to Condensate. So again, I just hope this can contextualize the tone of it, but overall I'm a huge fan of these blushes. If I had to keep just one, it would be Evaporate, but I love them all. At this time, I'm not really interested in picking up any more just because I love these so much and I want to make sure I use them as much as possible before they go bad. But in the future, I would be interested in maybe picking up one of their more punchy, vibrant colors. Okay, the last thing I have here is the Spectral Shine Radiance Balm in the shade Mirrored Moonlight. And I also have their Sky Buff brush, which I believe was specifically designed to be used with the Spectral Shine Balm. Now, I may call this a highlighter a few times while I'm talking about it, but I don't know that they advertise this to be a highlighter. I think it's honestly in a league of its own. So here's what they describe it as. Purpose: to add diffuse glitter-free radiance is unlike any traditional highlighter on the market. Think finishing powder and highlighter hybrid in a cream to powder form. Takes away oiliness or dewiness, but leaves behind a soft focused radiance akin to into softbox lighting. If you want metallic shine, this isn't it. This is your skin under amazing lighting in a compact, stiff, powdery feeling, cream to powder formula. Does not feel like an actual cream and will not melt with the warmth of your finger. And when I watched a lot of reviews before I picked this up, and one of the reviewers described this as beeswax, and I think that is totally accurate to what the experience is like in person. Not your typical cream, like barely picks up anything. This is not as intuitive as their other products. So first of all, I wish I picked up the shade Fresh Fog instead of Mirrored Moonlight, but I still have gotten a lot of use out of this. I wanted to give this the best fighting chance possible because I knew it was kind of a polarizing product. So I specifically got the brush that is supposed to be used with the Sky Buff brush. And what you're supposed to do is hold it at the base like you're holding a pen and swipe it for about 10 seconds with moderate to hard pressure to pick up the product. And the analogy they use is like you're spreading cold butter on toast. And I kind of like put my fingers on the actual bristles and like push it in here. And as you can see, like I have quite a bit of a dent, and it's gonna look like this on the brush. I hope the people at Phytosurgence aren't like watching this ripping their hair out, but I do think it's supposed to look like this on the brush, and that's how I've been using it. And then you will like apply it in swiping motions on your face. Now, if you're wearing a lot of base products underneath, I don't think you're gonna like this. This works best on either bare skin from my experience or like a very light base layer, because I think just the amount of pressure you need to use to apply it and the amount of swiping motions is going to disturb product underneath if you have a lot of it. Here's a comparison of my hand with the balm on, and here it is with the balm off. And I'm also going to show you what it looks like on my face. And in the face demo, I'm wearing a small amount of base product. I have the MAC Face and Body Foundation, which is like a very sheer serum-like foundation, a tiny bit of setting powder under my eyes, tiny bit of spot concealer. But other than that, I tried to keep a very minimal base. And the way I can describe this is like, makes your face look like you're at a candlelit dinner. Like it gives that very soft, glowy effect without the like sheen that you're used to from a highlighter. And I think sometimes people, when they buy this, they think they're getting like a typical cream highlighter and they end up not liking it because that's not what this product is. I feel like it has its place in my collection. I'd love to use it when I'm wearing no base makeup, or if I just want like a very soft sheen on my face. My husband actually, when I wear it, compliments my skin. He said it looks very glowy. So I think it does look very like flattering in person. I'm going to compare it to two products. I have this Juicy Pink highlighter, which is my most natural type of highlighter. And then I have the Hourglass Diffuse Light Powder, and I feel like this falls somewhere in between both of these. This is the Spectral Shine Balm, and you have to apply it with swiping motions if you're using your finger. It's not going to deposit from your finger onto your skin if you just like tap it. It really needs like that friction, I think, to apply. So here is the Spectral Shine. Here's this Juicy Pink highlighter, which is like one of my most satiny finished highlighters. So they are quite similar. I feel like this does have a little bit more of a shiny reflective finish. And then I'm going to apply this Hourglass Ambient Light Powder, which you can't really see because it just like melted into my skin. I don't know how what this comparison is really going to do, but again, I hope maybe it can just contextualize this product. I think this product is for a very specific person who's looking for a very specific thing. I think if you're looking for a traditional highlighter, you're not going to like this. If you're looking for something innovative, unique, not the most user-friendly or intuitive, but that will create an effect that's unlike any other product on your face, you will really like this. And I do think this has like a very dedicated fan base, and I understand why, but I also think it's like the most polarizing product that Phytosurgence has in their lineup. Hopefully the footage of me applying it and me describing it can help you at all. Wish I picked up Fresh Fog instead of Mirrored Moonlight because I feel like that is better suited for my very fair skin tone, but I do like the way Mirrored Moonlight looks on my face. Overall, so pleased with Phytosurgence. I'm so happy I decided to place an order with them. I'm loving the products I have. I really want to try their bronzer, even though I haven't owned a bronzer in years. I don't know if I should get like the rosier one or the golden, and I'm just excited to see what they have in store for the future. I think it's a great brand with a great team behind it. They're very active on social media, and they're always so supportive of their customers and always sharing things, and it's a brand I'm happy to support and share on my social media. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope you liked it. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel if you're not already, and other than that, I'll see you in the next one. Bye!